Let's talk about another big one though, commercial.
Mhm.
Commercial is, I get the request all the time. Someone's bought 2 or 3 residentials and now they're looking at commercial. What kind of advice or information do you think is applicable for someone getting into commercial, and what do they need to look out for? What do they need to be wary of, and what kind of returns are they expecting compared to residential?
Yeah. I guess to pre-frame my response is that we focus on residential property. So that's where we're experts in. However, I've done my own commercial investing and helped several clients on purchasing and selling and buying and doing their own strategies. What I find the biggest difference between residential and commercial is really going to come down to the maintenance of the costs involved. Because as a residential property, you as the owner are responsible for your council rates, your insurances, your emergency services levies, your insurances, all the running costs of the property. So if there's any maintenance issue, that's on you as a landlord if it's something to do with the property. Whereas when in a commercial nature, all of those costs are actually passed on to the tenant because the tenant pays everything from the outgoings, insurances, the maintenance, even the gardening, even anything to do with the property that becomes the cost of the tenant. With a residential property, the nature of those leases are normally 12 months. Whereas when you go into a commercial nature, it's usually 3 years plus. So 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. So these are the benefits between a commercial over residential. I guess the downside or the things to be considerate of is that commercial properties can sometimes go vacant for a lot longer than a residential property will. So whilst a residential property might remain vacant for 1 or 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops, a commercial property can go for months and months being vacant. So I guess the risk of being able to having to cash flow this property while hanging on to it could be a bit higher whilst it's vacant. Obviously, once you get a lease, then it becomes a different story. The other part to it is when it comes to financing these properties. So with a residential property, you can get the deal done with as little as 5% deposit if you're a owner occupier, or 10% if you're an investor. Whereas with a commercial property, the minimum you're going to need is about 30% deposit. So then the barrier for entry is a lot higher for commercial than it is for residential. So which one is right or wrong? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. And I know people get sick of me saying that, but it really does depend on what is it that you are trying to achieve. What's your capacity? What's your risk tolerance? What can you and can't you do before you go out there and make these decisions?